Welcome back to another episode of the Health Freedom for Humanity podcast with your hosts, Dr. Joe Yee, Dr. Tommy John Alex Zek. We just interviewed Stefan Lanka. It's really weird, man. You know, I had this thought as he was talking. I never thought that I would be interviewing a virologist at this point.
But a virologist how he speaks, he's in that world speaking as us. Like he's in that world seeing things how we see it. And he's still existing in that world. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And the way he speaks about humanity and the person and spirit and belief and emotions and trauma, like it might as well be me, but I'm not even, so it's possible, right? Like he's in that world and he's just such a loving, jovial, positive, like his face is just so, I feel so good when he talks about where we're headed, what's going to happen.
I don't know about you guys, but I feel like I got the lowdown inside scoop on science.
Oh my God.
Dude, that's exactly what I said. I've like more than anything that I've talked with, like, or anyone I've talked with or anything that I've read, we got the science that shows the scientism that we're dealing with is completely wrong. It's completely BS.
I would love to see someone like Dr. Lanka debate Anthony Fauci in public. I would love to watch something like that. Like this guy knows his information, his science. And, I think this podcast is, there's some parts that it gets very, very scientific.
Yeah.
And some people might be able to follow, some not, but man, at least at the end, he got a little spiritual too and very inspirational. So I thought that was beautiful, man.
Really, really cool. And, it was his 7 steps that he breaks down in as concise a manner as you can, sort of touching on the flaws inherent to virology. It was so unbelievable to hear because in those answers, he answered a lot of questions I had about like the genomic sequencing of the virus, this and that. It was such a fantastic thing to listen to, especially coming from the mouth of a virologist who's so passionate about this. And he's not passionate about proving his methods, proving his dogma. He's just passionate for truth. What is the truth of the matter behind these diseases that are ailing us, behind SARS-CoV-2 as we know it to exist, or COVID-19, whatever you want it to be? It's unbelievable to hear the passion in that man's voice and just a passion for truth. That's all it is.
Yeah.
All right, let's go ahead and get into the interview right now then. Thank you so much for joining us. We're really, really looking forward to this interview. I want to start with a foundational question just to talk about where we were at versus where we are now and what sort of led you to this belief. If you could go into, as you know it, the history of virology and what sort of led you to perceive viruses in the way that you do now.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's easy. I started here in this nice village at the Lake Constance. I was born in where I'm living now because when I was a youngster, I ran into a man. He was in charge of the Office of Lake Research because Lake Constance, it's a big lake, 7 million people drinking the water. And he told me and showed me how the water was polluted from radiation, from virus intakes, from the boat lining. We have a lot of touristic boats, and that this toxic staining, that this is enriching inside the fish to a really big extent. And anyway, he was a really decent man, and he wanted to publish, and he had to publish this data, but politics suppressed him, and this shocked me, and he died over this. And so I thought, there is betrayal going on in this field outside, and he told me that somebody has to take care of the oceans because Lake Constance can clean itself a little bit because River Rhine goes in Switzerland and goes out in Constance. And so, but the oceans are in danger if they would acidify and would lose its power to produce oxygen, then humankind is at risk, because the ocean's producing 70% of oxygen of the atmosphere. Right. So I gave up my idea becoming a chemist, and I ran into this weak field of biology in order to take care of the oceans, right? And I took this warning, I took this serious in a way. Of course, as a youngster, I forgot about this. I ran into biology. I realized, wow, it's so crazy that, in reality, this is an elite university I have been to, and the apparatus do not work, the microscope to look through, to make paintings, and we were forced to cheat. And so this was the second important step. I asked the professor if he would let me work in the lab in the third term, because I said, look, the study, it's not well organized, and it's how stupid, and it's a waste of time. And he let me, and I achieved staining nerves out of an organism from the sea, and he was happy for years. It was not possible. And there I had then access to the electron microscope. And with this technique, I could hire to another professor. He took me with open arms, who was doing real research with marine algae. And there I wanted to go to. And so I ran into this professor and came across a marine algae, which was not producing spores in its organs, where the algae is producing spores. Spores in a size you could easily see with the light microscope, and they would settle down and grow and build new algae. So the algae was not doing. On the other side, the algae was not dying, and I thought, what's going on? So I put this into resin, cut through, looked through the electron microscope, and saw millions of small particles we expected viruses should look like, hexagonal in the size where viruses should be like. And I thought, well, I found a stable virus-host relationship. The first, so to really study viruses, look, I thought I have a harmless viruses. And this is how it started, because I became a virologist. And I believed in the big concept that I'm a happy man, found a harmless virus. I can do really basic research on viruses. And I was teaching my students at the university to take care of HIV, because this was this time where AIDS was established. As a matter of fact, and I had a friend, a professor. I could use his lab tools. He was specialist on nucleic acid research, and he was really great. He was questioning the alpha helix of the DNA. He said it can't possibly be like this. He was critical. And once he was asking me if I checked this. And I said, look, Fritz Pohl, the whole world is saying this. And he said, he was not asking the world. So with my red face, he gave me some cards to take copy at the library, and everything he told me which would be of interest, I should copy twice for him, and Friday afternoon we are going to discuss. And this is how I ran into the real virology, seeing that there is virus in the title, but no virus in the paper, no structure. But only at this time in HIV, it was a biochemical activity, which nowadays it's called reverse transcription, which makes RNA into DNA. And this was equaled that then if you measure this activity, there must be a virus out there, okay? So, and some photographs of non-isolated particles of structures, typical structures of dying cells. And but never a real isolated thing, never the isolation of its nucleic acid and not its proteins. And at this time, the testing was antibody testing. So they claimed that they could purify the viral proteins, and otherwise, from the idea, a test would have no meaning at all if you could not purify proteins and use them in antibody tests to say, look, if antibody binds against this, then in your body you have had contact with the virus. So this is how I became a virologist, and then seeing that this concept has at least one fundamental flaw, HIV, right? And as I experienced political violence against a really sincere human being, his name was Rudolf Zahner, and he gave me a really important sentence on my way. He told me, if you always keep in mind that life is a secret which you can approach, and if you stay decent and then ask the right questions, you might get answer, and you most probably will get answer. This was what the essence, what I learned from him. But seeing, because I saw how politics was treating him and that he really died over this, right? And I was in a fight modus from the very beginning. I thought I had to fight for the oceans not to be polluted, you know, for the truth. And then I came quickly across, and this was the Chicago Tribune was reporting on this, and then Sunday Times, that Gallo was manipulating his cell cultures. He was killing them.
And Gallo was the one, just for the listeners, Gallo was the one behind HIV, right? He was the one who discovered HIV.
Yes, he was claimed for several decades that he was the one who discovered it. And at the end, it became clear that he was even stealing a photograph of Montagnier, the French researcher, who eventually in the year 2008 became the Nobel Prize for his paper of 1983. And in this paper, if you read it, 1983, then you'll find that Montagnier says, well, if it's true that I really have a virus, then this virus could possibly only be a cofactor of 1,000 other things. And if the gay people would stop inhaling this sexual drugs, inhalants, then they would not get fungi in their lungs, then they would not get those black knots inside, outside, and they would heal themselves if they take their vitamins, pure water, eat good, not taking the drugs. They would even throw out the virus out of their body. And this was why Montagnier was hated, because he dissolved this concept. There's a deadly virus. But at the end, you must imagine, he received the Nobel Prize, but he was so greedy to accept it and playing the game. And since this time, you don't hear from him anymore. Oh, your body can get easily rid of the virus. And, you know, he's the Nobel Prize and has sometimes a really, really bad influence. And